communication. You know what I'm saying? You know, maybe having a journal. You know, picking up a hobby. You know what I'm saying? So something that's kind of, you know, puts your energy somewhere. Because really, you know, when you're angry, it's like, you know, like you're full of energy, right? So you know, put it somewhere.
Welcome to another episode of Family That Learns. Today we are talking about mental health, and we have an amazing guest star, the hip hop social worker himself, Chris Scott. Thank you.
How y'all doing?
For those who don't know who Chris Scott is, Chris, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and like where you came from, what's your backstory, your origin story, as they would say?
Right. Yeah. So, I'm from Portland, Oregon, born and raised. I became a social worker. You know, the official title, like, you know, getting a degree in social work. I used to work at this juvenile jail, right? Just doing groups, doing like one-on-one treatment with all the youth inside the jail. Yep. I saw this guy come in, talk for like 15 minutes, you know what I'm saying, or a little longer than that, and then he would leave. And I was like, damn, what is that? Because I had to work there. I'm there for the whole shift. Yep. You know, doing meal preps and exercise with all these kids. Like, I was kind of like, man, I want to see what he's doing because he's coming in and leaving. So you know, I talked. His
workday is short.
Right. So I talked to him, and he was like, oh yeah, I'm a therapist. And at that time, I had no idea what a therapist was. This is about maybe 7 years ago. Like I was thinking like, you know, a Frasier or something like that. I had no idea that I was actually that close of proximity to a therapist. Mm-hmm. So I asked him, you know, how do I become that? He said, well, you can, you can do what I do, which is, he had an LPC, I believe, which is a licensed professional counselor, or you can get a degree in social work. Mm-hmm. Now I knew about the, that because I was looking at, going to grad school after I graduated undergrad, and I knew what an MSW was, but I didn't know what I could do with it. So I was like, okay, so I made it a New Year's resolution one year to, apply for grad school. I applied, got waitlisted, got in, and then, so.
Now you're a social worker.
Now I'm a social worker,
Sweet.
which, therapist is like, just part of, many things that I do, what I'm saying? So, right, so like this is a small part, but it is a part of kind of the whole shebang, because with a social work degree, you can do a lot of things, right?
So this is actually a really good starting point. Like, so what do you feel, what are the things that a social worker does? Because I think when people think of social worker, they think of like CPS coming at the door and the social worker popping in with the police, Ice-T in the back is like, I knew you did it.
Right.
So what is a social worker? Because I think it could actually have some positive connotations.
For sure. So that's like the main, misconceptions that we take kids and with baby snatchers, right? You know what I'm saying? And there is a job for that, right? But most social work jobs are therapists, because that's like the job that kind of, it's going to give you like a high, return, because like, you can be a therapist and make a lot of money, right? You know what I'm saying? So therapists can probably be the most common thing that a social worker can do. You also, can do community work, case management, be like a liaison, you can be in policy, you can be in management, you can be a person that, does like equity work, so like say like, Nike might have, like an issue with their campus, and they might want to hire someone who could do like, talks about equity and things like that. A social worker could do that.
Oh, wow.
You know what I'm saying? So it's really just about like the betterment of the whole environment, whether that's micro environment, which is us here just kind of hanging out, a macro environment, which is outside world, or a meso environment, which is kind of, like an organization.
Love it.
Right.
So today we're talking about anger management. This is part one of a two-part series that we're doing with Chris, and I think this has actually been something that hits a little home for me, because when I was a kid, that is something that I had to learn, was how to handle my anger. And there's a lot of different reasons why as a kid I was very angry. A lot of it was also abandonment issues. A lot of it also was just the fact that I was like the biggest kid in school and everybody felt like it was okay to pick on me.
Right.
It's very ironic that the biggest kid in school gets picked on, but it's actually a lot more common than people think.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so it's just one. There's a lot of trauma in that. So let's talk a little bit about that. Like, explain to me what anger is, and then like how do, like the idea of anger management. Why is anger management important?
Right. So anger management is important because I mean, anger is really just like a common, emotion that we have, right? You know what I'm saying? But it can also be very dangerous if not really managed well, right? You know what I'm saying? So like I like to so when I used to do groups, when my old, 7 jobs ago, right? You know what I'm saying? I was like the anger management person, like I went and got certified to do, it was a group called ART, which is Aggression Replacement Training.
Oh, okay.
Right. It teaches you that, we have these groups, you don't want to make anger taboo. Like, oh, you should never be angry, right?
Okay.
You don't want to do that, but you want to say it's normal, but there's ways you can kind of, channel it to, mean something else, or put that, aggression somewhere else, because it's very dangerous if you're a person who can't manage your anger, right? You can beat someone up, you can probably hurt someone very badly, you can lose jobs, you can lose housing, you can lose just kind of spiral out of control because you can't control your anger.
Exactly.
Right, you know what I'm saying? So I like to teach that, hey, it's good to feel that feeling. It's good to be like, man, I'm mad, I'm upset, but, what do we do with it?
Yeah.
Right, you know what I'm saying? So that's one thing I like to teach is like, hey, I know, like if I come to you with some bad news, I would be naive for me to think that you can just take that news.
Got it.
And not really react a certain way, right? But how you react, it's on you to kind of know that I gotta either count backwards from 100, I gotta walk away, I gotta, do some deep breaths, and then I can, address this, proactively.
For
What I'm
sure.
saying?
So what leads people into anger? Because I think that's one of the big things that like people are, because I feel like people just think that people are angry for no damn reason.
Right.
If you're in anger management, there's no reason you just can't control yourself, which I think is a fallacy.
For sure.
Because there's a lot. It's not always being treated wrong. It's just sometimes it's other things. So what are some emotions that like lead people to anger?
Well, fear, neglect, trauma, being sad, being, feeling. Oh, I already said neglect. So like your environment. You know what I'm saying? Being embarrassed, being shamed. So all those things really can lead up to feeling like being angry, right? You know what I'm saying? Not really knowing what's up. You know what I'm saying? Really kind of being somewhere that's just uncertain of things. You know what I'm saying? Like I know now. When I was a kid, I never really had anger issues. I was always kind of I would say I had like the foresight to know that I can't really be acting up like that, you know what I'm saying? So like I was kind of more like recluse, like kind of quiet. Right now as an adult, and I have all these pressures, you know what I'm saying? I got kids, I got jobs, I got bills, I got all this stuff. Now I feel like my anger is coming up more, but because I'm a person that who's pretty in sound or who's pretty in sync. So with my mental health, right? You know what I'm saying? I know what to do to kind of, avoid explosions blowing up, right? You know what I'm saying? So whatever's happening in your environment really, you know what I'm saying, can cause anger, you know what I'm saying? Just feeling out of place, confusion, just sad, embarrassed, you know what I'm saying? Because like you said, when you were a kid, right? People would, everyone want to pick on the big kid, right? You know what I'm saying? I'm sure that made you feel probably a little embarrassed. You know what I'm saying? A little.
I went through all the emotions.
Right, you know what I'm saying? So really just anything happening to you, So like I used to teach, when I used to teach those groups, we had 2 things, internal triggers and external triggers, right?
Yeah.
The external trigger was, hey, big guy, you know what I'm saying? Like, you need to get out the way. Yeah. Right? And the internal trigger is like, man, I'm tired of getting picked on. Like you're talking to yourself. Tired of getting picked on every day. I'm about to lose it. Yeah. And then you lose it. Right?
Yeah.
So.
No, and I think that's one of the big things is people may see the external triggers all the time, but the internal trigger sometimes is the worst. It's the inner voice that's like repeating, because it's one thing to be like you can take yourself out of a situation of being called these names and not hanging with certain people and everything like that, but like the person in your head. Right. That's the one that's always there.
Sticks with you.
Exactly.
And you might come back because the person in your head is telling you, hey, you know what? You're not done. You should go back and tell them what's up.
Definitely. And I think one of the big things that also is like the denial of anger. So how do you recognize, like, I guess, I mean, you can go with your own personal stuff, but how can another person recognize that like they are getting angry all the time without the idea of like I'm not angry, I'm justified,
Yeah.
or I'm not angry, that's just me being 100.
Right, for sure.
Like, what are some ways that people can recognize those things?
So really, how your body responds. You know what I'm saying? I know sometimes people, might get, like sweaty palms. You know what I'm saying? They might, clench their fists. They might start pacing. They might, have a stomach ache. You know what I'm saying? Like you get nervous. You get like, just kind of uneasy. I know for me, like if I get real short, I know that I'm getting angry. You know what I'm saying? And as far as like being justified, that's a question you got to ask yourself. That's like the internal dialogue. You know what I'm saying? Because some things, like, hey, if I'm trying to defend myself and somebody wants to fight and I'm saying no and I end up fighting, that's not really an anger issue. That's like, me kind of, I'm defending myself, right? Yeah. But if I'm like, like let's say like, I'm new here and I bump into the camera and knocked it down, right? Now, of course that's something to be angry about, right? You know what I'm saying? But you got to have that, talk to yourself. Is this worth going and slapping him for? You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Or should I re-examine, hey, he's new here, he doesn't really know what's going on.
Yeah.
I give him a pass. Now, if I, say, hey man, F that camera, then that's a different conversation to have with yourself too. Is me beating him up worth going to jail? And then I won't have no cameras because I'm going to,
Yeah, because I'm going to be in jail.
Right.
I'll be doing a studio behind bars.
For sure. And they might have one. So.
They might. So, because you talked about like it is okay to be angry, which I think that's super huge because anger definitely is an emotion. One of the things that people are like repressing emotions are not healthy. It's not healthy. So like, what are some healthy ways we can, healthy and unhealthy ways to cope with anger?
So unhealthy ways, of course, it's like, being violent, property damage to someone else, drinking, being passive aggressive, kind of like being mean.
Passive aggressive. Okay, that was a new one. I didn't really think of passive aggressive as being angry, but I guess I can see that. Yeah,
for sure, because because something's happening to you, right? And that's like something that you got to think about too. Just because I'm not loud doesn't mean I'm not angry, right? You know what I'm saying? So like let's say I was late and I walk in, you like, man, what I'm saying, like I wish I could have had extra time to spend with you, but you were late, but it's all good, what I'm saying, don't worry about it, what I'm saying. That's like you trying to say that I'm not angry, but it's like you really are because you said that.
Yeah.
Right, what I'm saying.
That is one of my worst things. Like people say, I'm okay, then why aren't you acting right? Like,
right.
Why are you acting this way? And it's like, I'm just saying, like, I wish it would have been like this. I'm like, so you are angry. Like, but it's okay.
And that's the taboo of anger. We're not supposed to be angry.
Of course.
You know what I'm saying? So like, so I'm trying to like, hold it in, and but then me holding it in, now I'm just kind of stinging you a little bit.
Yeah,
it's like just say you're mad.
Yeah, so it's okay. That is, especially in relationships, that is something that I'm really learning, that like it's okay to be like, no, this frustrates me. Like you're late. Like why are you always late? Like this is like, and like is it a situation of like you don't value my time, or is it a situation of you have really poor time management? So if that's the case, then I can always just expect that like you're going to be 15 minutes late to things.
Right.
And then I can at least prepare myself to be like not be let down.
Yeah, right. I can I can prepare myself. Okay, so now I might have to have something after this. So now I got to call this person like, hey, but if I don't know, now it just looks like I'm a flake. And that makes me upset because I don't want to be a flake. So that was a big problem. But kind of always being like, the jokester, right? You know what I'm saying? Like that's kind of a coping skill that's, like it can be lighthearted, but I'm saying, like someone's angry and they always kind of like, crack their jokes through it. It's like, okay, that's kind of annoying, right?
They call it the
what I'm saying? So, but yeah, those are things that are very kind of unhelpful, what I'm saying? And then helpful ways is, communication, what I'm saying? Maybe having a journal, picking up a hobby, what I'm saying? So something that's kind of, puts your energy somewhere. Cause really, when you're angry, it's like, you're full of energy, right? So, put it somewhere, boxing, coloring, what I'm saying? I definitely like to color when I'm feeling a little angry. I know podcasting, that's kind of one of the reasons I started podcasting, because I had a lot of stuff to say.
Yeah.
And I just would get on the podcast and say it. And if I want to release it, I release it. And if I don't, then I don't.
For sure.
Right, so exercising is a good coping skill, you know what I'm saying? But the thing about coping skills is that there's always like a thin line between like being like, helpful and then harmful, right? So you don't want to like, do too much of anything, to where like it's, to where it's harmful to your, overall lifestyle, you know what I'm saying? So just, just be wary of that. But yeah, those kind of things are very helpful,
So now, the big thing that I really want to talk about when it comes to anger management is for young people and like for parents, because I think, what Family That Learns is, it's always, bringing it back to there's parents who see their kids are angry. There are kids who are young and are developing, and their hormones. We always blame the hormones, but I say it's like a 50-50. It's like hormones and actually the external pressure triggers and
right.
So like, what would you give advice to, say, a young 18-year-old or 16-year-old who's going through puberty and all that stuff? Like, what would be some advice you would give a young person to be like, hey, like, if you're angry, like, what would be like the top three tips you can help them when it comes to identifying and managing their anger?
Okay, so I would, do something like, keep track of when you get angry. Try to figure out what's causing this anger. You know what I'm saying? Is there something that's maybe like you repressed? You know what I'm saying, that you kept down? Is, do you like yourself? Do you like this? Do you like that? You know what I'm saying? Are you mad at mom and dad? You don't really, have the, not heart, but like, you don't have like, the wherewithal to tell them that, you know what I'm saying? Is school tough? Is, so like, what's going on, right? So like, you just really try to figure out what's going on with that. Have a conversation with yourself, you know what I'm saying? Kind of see, like who you really are, you know what I'm saying? I know a lot of times we get lost in like, someone else's identity, and that can really, cause anger issues in itself, right? For sure. You know what I'm saying?
I think that's one of the biggest common things I've seen when working with teenagers is they don't know what they're doing or who they are, or
right.
Like that conversation is super hard because they have those pressures like figure it out now. Right. I get that, but in the same sense, I'm just like, that can make a person very resentful and angry at the mention of like, who are you?
Right.
And if you're asking yourself, you're like, then you're going to be angry at yourself too.
Right. Yeah.
But no, I think that's important.
And also ask for some help. I feel like, when I was 16, 17, that age, right, I just didn't, I was so like just quiet and didn't ask for help, so I feel like letting someone know that you're hurting is very helpful. Definitely. For
sure. And then for the parents, like how can they create safer spaces for their kids to, I guess, express their anger? Like, what are some tips for that? Because I think it's not always easy, especially if, even kids are experiencing violence, right, or they're being violent and stuff like that. How can they create that like space? So
don't assume that your kid knows what the hell they're doing. You know what I'm saying? Okay. Like don't assume that they have it all together.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? There are kids probably who have straight A's, honor roll, you know what I'm saying, play sports, 2-star athletes, getting college recruitment stuff. That don't mean that they have it all together. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I feel like a lot of times, we always want to assume that, our kids know what's going on.
Yeah. You
know what I'm saying? And if we know back to being teenagers, we probably didn't know what the hell was going on. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like, have conversations, you know what I'm saying? Kind of leave your own reality at the door. Because I know, even myself, my kids are young, but I have like this, I have their life planned out for them already. You know what I'm saying? I want you to do this, do that, right? So like kind of leave that at the door, you know what I'm saying? Be open to conversations. I know kids out here do all kind of stuff, you know what I'm saying? I know when I was a kid, and stuff I was doing, and if I was talking to my dad about it, I don't know if he would have had the open-mindedness to really have a conversation about some things. Sure. So I feel like, that should be a thing though. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? If there's stuff going on, you know what I'm saying, whether you're into drugs or you're into, if whether you're having sex, you know what I'm saying, you as a parent should create that space to where we can just talk about these things, right? And then if you are upset, then let it be known that, hey, that's disappointing, you know. But we just assuming that people know what they're doing are just kind of having like just kind of this ignorance is bliss type attitude.
Yeah.
Very hurtful, very harmful. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if you want to create that space, man, just kind of maybe set some boundaries. You know what I'm saying? Maybe if like, hey, I'm a parent, I want to know some things, but if there's some things that are too raw, then hey, let's just leave the details out of it. I mean, because you can do that, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, I know every time I do a group, we have what we call guidelines, agreements, right? With 5 of us in this group, we agree to these certain conditions, so nobody is going to cause harm, right? So, and just because you're the parent and you're the kid doesn't mean I have, like, you know what I'm saying, like those old school kind of, I tell you what to do. Sometimes that's just kind of is what it is, right? You know what I'm saying? But when your kids get older and they're able to like figure things out without you kind of leading them to it, right? Like saying, like when your friends become more important than you, then you should probably, kind of adapt to that as well.
For sure. So do you suggest, do you suggest that when we have the situations, like, because you kind of put a really good point. There are certain things you don't want to hear about your kid, like especially one of the big things is like their sex life. Right. If they're like some parents just are not comfortable, especially if they're very conservative. Would that be like a good point for them to be like, hey, like maybe you should have some counseling? Or something like that.
Oh yes, for sure.
Because there might be a professional who would be like, I'm willing to hear about their sex life and give advice. Perfect. So actually, that leads us into my final question is going to be like what are some resources that you have and maybe even like of that people can use for anger management if they're single and they're in this world alone, they don't really have a family or something like that, and they need help. Right.
So I don't know any anger management like specific trainings, because a lot of them are done like in juvenile homes, stuff like that, right? But therapy is a good resource. You know what I'm saying? You can do like a DBT group. Okay. You can do if you're really hard up and you really just can't every day is just a struggle. You can do intensive outpatient, which is like you call Providence or something like that and be like, hey, like every day is a struggle for me to do X, Y, and Z. I might need a little bit of more intensive treatment, and then they can hook you up. But therapy is a good place to kind of express those things. Yeah, so you can just hit online and search support groups. There's support groups for a lot of things, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes you're angry because you don't feel heard, you know what I'm saying? So like, I might not even need anger management. I might just need a space to feel like, my voice is heard, right? So that's a good, thing you don't know about yourself as well. Like, do I really need anger management? Or do I just feel like, I don't have the space to kind of be myself or or to share my interests. So, so yeah, just hit online,
social media maybe?
Right, you know what I'm saying? Social media is a good, so Facebook, I learned this working, my last job, Facebook has a lot of support groups that I didn't know about. Like there's a support group for people that have BPD, which is borderline personality disorder, and it's about like 50,000 people.
Oh wow!
Right, you know what I'm saying. So if you really, really are that hard up, maybe you're not a person who wants to go out and be social. You know what I'm saying? Like you feel more comfortable being at home. Facebook and find groups that interest you. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, and that I think right there. There's no excuse to not get out, and I think that's the biggest thing, and I love that. All right, well, that is it for anger management. Chris, could you tell people how they can reach you if they wanted to connect with you, talk to you more, include your podcast that I'm excited to hear about?
For sure.
Yeah, give the audience what they need.
All right, so really the easiest way is to go to my website, hiphopsocialworker.com, and everything you need is there. I do have merchandise, which is kind of like social work merchandise. Okay. You know what I'm saying? But that's not the important part.
Social worker branded.
Yeah. I do have a podcast that I was connecting with other social workers with, talking about social work in their life and their community things as well. Yeah, just learn a little bit more about me and my profession, and trying to reach out. You can also inquire about me being your therapist if that's something that you want to do.
This is huge, y'all. A black therapist available for new clients. That's huge.
I got a few spots available.
All
so.
right. Well, man, I might have to hit you up then.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you guys for watching this Family Learns episode. Thank you, Chris, for being a part of this. And
no problem. Stay
tuned for part 2. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be all about men's mental health, which I think that's huge.
For sure.
Thank you.
Peace.